This is a pretty large loss for the Texas GOP in Washington, though, and joining us to talk more about this is Ramsey, who is the executive editor of our news partners, the Texas Tribune. Thanks for being with us this afternoon, Ross. Let's talk a little bit about this. Barton is the senior member of the congressional delegation from Texas. Really, how big of a loss is this for the party here in Texas?
Well, it's a big loss for the state in terms of tenure. He is the dean of the delegation. I guess that now falls to Eddie Bernice Johnson of Dallas. He's the senior Republican in the delegation, and he was in a district that's considered safe for Republicans, but was pretty well held by Joe Barton, and don't have a lot of candidates lined up to take his place. They're starting to come in, and there will be plenty by the December 11th deadline, but it's a shock to the GOP.
So you mentioned that this is a very safe Republican seat here and that people are already lining up here, and we do have that deadline for primary challengers coming up on December 11th. How much of a scramble is this right now for people who want to throw their hats into the ring here for this, because this seat will likely be decided in the primary?
Right. They've got about a week and a half to figure it out. People who are already in office, who have already run in all or part of the district, are going to have something of an advantage, and most of the voters here are in Tarrant County as opposed to Ennis County, where Barton is from. So a Tarrant County candidate might have an upper hand.
Now let's talk a little bit about the overall picture here. As we mentioned, Barton would be the 7th member of the Texas delegation to not be seeking re-election in 2018. All but 2 of those are Republicans, and we're putting up some pictures on the screen here that you can't see there, Ross, but basically we're showing all of the people here who are not seeking re-election in 2018. We also, of course, have Beto O'Rourke out in El Paso, who's not pictured here. He is not seeking re-election simply because he is running for the Senate. Do Democrats have any chance here to pick up seats, perhaps, since we see so many Republicans who won't be returning?
Maybe. Probably not. Most of these seats are pretty safe. The 2 Democratic seats, the O'Rourke seat and the Gene Green seat in Houston, are pretty solidly Democratic. The Republicans don't have a chance there. In the other 5 seats, the Republicans have a real upper hand. There are a couple of other seats in Texas where Democrats or Republicans might win depending on the climate. One of those is the Pete Sessions seat in Dallas, the John Culberson seat in Houston. Neither one of those is an open seat, but this is the kind of turnover we generally don't see except in redistricting years when the map gets turned over. This is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, this is almost a 5th of the delegation that won't be returning next time around. One last question for you before we let you go, Ross. Curious, everything is relative, obviously, these days in D.C. There are other members high up in the government, including Senator Al Franken and Congressman John Conyers, even President Trump, who are facing much more serious allegations. Does this put any additional pressure on other people who are dealing with their own scandals and with their own allegations when you do see a congressman step down or say that he will not run again?
Sure it does. And there are 2 standards at work here. One of them is a legal standard, what's sexual harassment, what kind of trouble are you in that way. The other is political pressure. And if you are, like Joe Barton was, about to be on the ballot in front of your voters and you have to present them with the kind of person that they want to elect to office, then you're in more danger than somebody who's not going to be on the ballot in 2018. Barton is about, would have been about 60 days away from an election. Would have been hard to overcome this. Someone like Al Franken, who isn't going to be on the ballot, might have a time to get over the PR problem that this presents.
All right. After a wild election year last year, Ross, it looks like we're headed for another one in 2018. Thanks for being with us this afternoon and giving us the insight.
Thanks.